Hello and welcome to this news episode of Magic the Gathering. We have gotten a lot of new dates, and I wanted to start off with that. And we do this in a chill way, of course, as ever. So I hope you all have a drink and ready to check this out. So next up, we will have a lot of dates, and let's start off with them. So first of all, we have the Streets of New Capenna story. This is a set all about crime, and it's in the city. It's with demons. It's with we have seen dragons. We have seen angels. So this should be a fun story. There will be a video. Don't know what that entails, but it will all be end of March, and then beginning of April we will get the beginning of the previews, and this will be complete on the 15th. Of course, we will be reviewing all of the cards by then, so that should be fun too. That should be fun. We will also will get more commander decks, which we are starting to expect. These will come out in only 3 days, so that's really fast. All of it is really fast after Kamigawa as well. I have heard some voices of discontent in that region from fans as well. Of course, for content creators it's a little bit fast, but for us it's really good, to be honest. But when it's coming from the fans, it's a little bit dangerous, I think. Well, not dangerous, but it's more like, I think it's a little bit, they should listen to it. But then next up, the set will release. It will release on Arena. We will get the trailer only when the set has been released. I think that's a little bit strange, but it's something marketing like that they are trying out. Then the worldwide release will be later. There will be parties. I don't know what that's about per se, but that should be fun. And there will be some games and store championships. So it's really good to see that we can soon get back into all of the championships, or so we hope. So there have been some lands released with the set, with the introduction of the set, and these are, of course, let's go by them in Woolwork order. We see the planes, really static, strong structures. We see trains, so maybe that shows us that there will be vehicles in the set. Maybe they will be in the Azorius colors as well. We see the golden tint of this set, and it will return in this island. For example, we see the statue with the golden showings on it, and on the left side we see more like it looks more like a swamp, but it's blue colored. We see that there are a lot of sewers in the city, and I think that's mostly what they want to show us, and they definitely show us with the actual swamps, where some houses have gone underwater. They are not really showing the sewers in the swamp ones, which is a little bit strange, but apparently the city is mostly well under control, and then there are parts like this. We have a mountain. It's not really a mountain, it's more like, maybe it's a mountain of skyscrapers, and interesting to see that apparently we still had mountains in our cities as well, and we still have forests there. This is a little bit too overgrown for most cities. It looks like it's almost deserted. Maybe people have been, maybe at first all of the people were into big buildings and stuff, but now people are going back to nature and they are letting their buildings be, and that is what these forests suggest. And also interesting for the left one is the statue that seems to show freedom in some ways. So we also have something interesting. It's the tri-lands with the cycling in them. On Ikoria, these were the triomes. Now they are the places of the 5 leaders of the families in this set. First of all, we have the Obscura. Here we see the symbol for them as well. It's a hand with a key in them. Maybe it's like Obscura, it's obscured. So they have a lot of secrets probably, and their leader is Rafine. We can see that the city down from where we are looking is shrouded in mist in both upper versions of the art. So seems to say the same. And then the Obscura's cloud spire dominates the skyline. Its eye a beacon of progress that sees all. So they see everything, but there's a lot of obscurance going on. Interesting, it's white, blue, and black. So that seems like a good color pairing for secrets, where there is the mirror in it, but they still want control over the people, and that is why white is in there. We have the Maestros, which is also a very cool name. These people seem more like duelists to me, and in the art you can also see, I put two of the same in there. You can also see that this is a sort of luxury, old-fashioned style criminal type of family. Maestro agents can lie low in high style at the opulent shadow hostel. So they like to be in style, they like to enjoy everything, and they like to drink blood for some reason. Ciatora's proving ground is from the River Tears. They have a hammer and an anvil as their sign, and restless Riveteers can always find a sparring partner in the sprawling Dreza warehouse. So they have a warehouse, and here they come together. These are the janitors of the city, the cleaners, the people that get their hands dirty. They are in black, red, and green. They are the fighting people as well. And, they will not necessarily leave a mark. But what is interesting that I am just now noticing, by the way, is that you can see the colors of the triomes, the towers, the places, in the middle of the most down card. So you see here white, black, and sort of yellow, or that's blue, the top one probably, and here you see blue, black, and red, and here you see green, black, and red as well. So that's interesting. Haven't seen that before. I think we will see it in the next ones. Yep, here we see the red, green, and white in this Naya colored Jetmir's garden. So Jetmir, the leader of the Cabaretti. And the Cabaretti, they are maybe they are jokers, or at least they like to enjoy nature. The park-like cabaret grounds offer rest, food, and the perfect place to shake off a tail. So these are slippery people, maybe some lizard people, maybe they embrace all kinds of animalistic people even. Seems very Naya to do. And you can come to shake off a crime that you had done, and maybe the people here will protect you for it. Spara's headquarters is about the Nido. No, that's not true. About the brokers. So these are people that trade, they sell, they are Azorius with green tingled into there. I don't know where the green comes from. To most, the Nido Sanctuary is an office complex. To the brokers, it's a vault of secrets. So a lot of secrets in this set. I'm interested in what this means for the Spara. But we also do have something else, which is from these colors, yes, the Broker's Ascendancy. So here we see two versions of the same people standing around a table, but the second one is more of a modern art style. And then we see that what it does. So it's an Ascendancy card. We have seen that before on Guns of Tarkir. With, for example, Jeskai Ascendancy is, I think, one of the most famous ones. At the beginning of your end step, put a +1 counter on each creature you control and a loyalty counter on each planeswalker you control. This is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. So maybe that's more where the green-white comes in. The friendship, and we are together and stuff like that. And more importantly, so here we go to the more controlling blue part, a profitable one. Now sign here. So make this contract. You are now with us, and you have to be friends with us. We also have a lot of products. We have draft boosters, of course. We have set boosters, of course. We have the pre-release kit, the bundle. So that is with just a few of them. We have a collector's boosters bundle where it seems like there are 8 in them. So that's just the normal amount. And then, of course, well, not of course, but again, we have the theme boosters for all of the sets. And I believe we are seeing the leaders of all of the families here, maybe. Or these are just people from them. They don't really all seem like leaders per se. But again, we see the Riveteers, the fighty people, the Maestros, the scheming people, the Obscuras, so sort of like the Demir agenty people, the Cabaretti like snakes, and the brokers seem like more office-like people. So that's where we can get some more of our thoughts from about these guilds. Then we had in the same video a lot of Innistrad cards all of a sudden that were from a popular series. And here we see them. I'm not sure about them per se, but we see Bjorna, Nightfall Alchemist, a 2-mana human in Izzet, and you may sacrifice an artifact to deal 1 damage to a creature and goad them. And Arvinox, the Mind Flail, is a 7-mana 9/9, so that's a lot of stats for it. And it isn't a creature unless you control 3 or more permanents you don't own, so you have to steal creatures. And then at the beginning of your end step, you may exile a card from each opponent's library, so sort of like the red dinosaur thing. For as long as those cards remain exiled, you may look at them and cast them and spend mana as though they were any color. So this is stealing a lot of cards, and in just one cycle you can have a 9/9 as well. Sicily is a Grixis 4-colored 3/5 wizard. You have more maximum hand size, 11, because the character is called 11. And then whenever they attack you, draw a card and lose a life. Then if you have 11 or more cards, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand without paying their mana costs. Only when you are attacking then. So these also have friends forever. They work together with Bjorna, but also with Elmar, Ulvenwald, Informant. And here you see the weird part that they are in the plane of Innistrad, and they are from another IP as well. So is this real? Is this in the story? I don't know. This is a 3-mana 3/2 with haste, and for every second spell you play, you can investigate, get a clue, and draw a card when you sacrifice it for 2. Hargilde, Kindly Rune Chanter, is a 4-mana human. You can tap it to get 2 mana and spend them on abilities or artifacts. Artifact abilities or artifacts. Then we have from the Sigurdian people an outcast from them. Oldhelm is a 3-mana 2/2, where for 2 mana you may tap him and choose a creature in your graveyard that only died this turn, and then return it tapped. So you can sort of I don't know what it's called again. No. You can return it for only that turn. So these are not the greatest. Some of them are really chunky and people will still want to play them. We have Wernok, Rider's Chaplain on the right side, a 2-mana Orzhov guy. When they enter and leave, your opponents may investigate, and each opponent who doesn't lose is alive. So why wouldn't they, you might think. You also investigate X times, where X is 1 plus so every time your opponents investigate, you get 1 investigation, and you get 1 extra. So you give your opponent something, and they don't want to not take it because they take damage. I think that's a really interesting design. And you get a lot of drawing as well. But this only works when he enters, so you maybe want to flicker him or something like that. Because it also works when he leaves. So this is really good in flickering decks. Then we have Sophina, a Spear Boros 4-mana soldier, a 4/4 with menace, so that's already good, of course. But whenever they attack, you get to investigate once for each non-token attacking creature. So that's a lot of investigations as well. Really diving into this as a mechanic. So this is starting to become a really good 5-color investigate deck. We have a land as well. Says 4 mana investigate. And at the beginning of your end step, if you sacrifice 3 or more, you may transform it into Haven Ghoul Mystery, which says when they get transformed, you may return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That's intense. And when the creature is put onto the battlefield with it, and it leaves the battlefield, you may transform it back again. So then, if you have at your end step again 3 or more clues, you can get it back and forth. So strong. Seems like these are becoming a deck or something. Then we have a very bright The Legends of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. This is a new chapter, so if you were here for the new things, this is not that. This is about all of the legendary creatures of Kamigawa. I have chosen to make them this ugly color. I will go over them and see what the Legends of Kamigawa are about. As I said, the new set comes really fast after this set that just came out, that is of a world that I am really invested in and I've read a lot of books about and was really into when it came out as a story. So I think we should look at it a little more. So let's see. Lightpulse, Emperor's Voice is a 2-mana 2/2, and when an aura enters the battlefield under your control, if you cast it, you may search your library for an aura card with mana value less than or equal to that aura and with a different name than each aura you control. So good in Commander, extra good there. Put that card into the battlefield attached to Lightpulse as well, so you can really take it out of her, from her. But Lightpulse really wants you to cast more auras, and then you can get more from your library onto Lightpulse. So that's what she does. What I think is interesting is that the Kitsune of Kamigawa have these different names, like Lightpulse, and sort of the tribal names that they give themselves for what they have done in their lives. And we see this as well in their tales. The more tales you have, the more wise you are. So here we see at least like 4, 5, 6 tales. That means that she is really wise. 9 is the most that you can have. And here we see 6 or 7 maybe. Already gives you the right to be the Emperor's voice. She speaks for the Emperor, and the Kitsune have a history of siding with the Emperor because the Emperor is almost always on Kamigawa, someone that is rebelling against their Emperor dad, and they want to be heard as well, and the Kitsune are playful and therefore will hear these young people. In her youth, the intelligent Lightpulse graduated at the top of her Golden Tail Academy class and started work within the Imperial Court, overseeing and regulating the sites where the spirit and mortal realms merged. She took her duty very seriously out of genuine concern for her people's safety. Her career looked promising until a lost Kami burst through the construction site and began hurting people in its confusion. Risking her life, the unarmed Lightpulse stood her ground against the enraged Kami and talked it down using diplomacy alone. In that moment, she earned her second tail. So we can see that by being wise, you get your tails, not just by being wise, but by doing things that are wise. The then Emperor was so impressed by Lightpulse's tact and skill that he invited her to be his personal advisor and teach the younger generations who lived within the palace walls. Since then, Lightpulse's long lifetime has seen her advise several emperors of Kamigawa, and her now 7 tails are a sign of wisdom that earns her great reverence throughout the entire Imperial Court. However, as a staunch believer of the Imperial Court and its laws and procedures, she has never faced a challenge as great as the one she faces now, a Kamigawa without an emperor. She believes in the leadership of Eikonyo, and she thinks it's hard to not have a leader anymore at all. Cool. Showing us that Eikonyo is really about this order thing. So, Tameshi. Tameshi being the moonfolk that was working with Kaido, I think. But let's look at it. A 3-mana moonfolk wizard. 2/3. Whenever one or more non-creature permanents are returned to hand, draw a card. So you want to blink things with Tameshi. This ability triggers only once each turn. So 1 card a turn is not the greatest for Azorius. They are Azorius because here's the white ability. Return a land you control to its owner's hand. Return target artifact or enchantment, so non-creatures, with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. You don't have to tap the Meshi for this. To the battlefield. To the battlefield is really important. Activate only as a sorcery though, so that is less, but the Meshi wants you to restock on really big enchantments. Do it once a turn, draw more cards, make more value, get your big enchantments back. Tameshi is a brilliant Moonfolk scientist who is a member of the Saiba Futurists. Unlike most other futurists who think Kami magic is outdated compared to more widely available technology, Tameshi always wanted to study how Kami could bridge the mortal and spirit realms. Maybe this would offer new insights on the nature of reality. As a teen, Tameshi was a prodigy apprenticed under Katsumasa, a renowned Moonfolk scientist where he manufactured origami drones that could help house new or lost Kami. Interesting because Tameshi also gave Kaido a origami drone. He gave one of the drones to his friend, Kaido Shizuki. Hear me mansplain stuff before I read about them. And Kaido still wears that drone to this day. Once Tameshi, well, because there is a Kami in it. Once Tameshi had his own lab, he began to study the nature of metaphysics on Kamigawa and developed the reality chip, a strange device that can be embedded into the skin and gives the user a mysterious connection to planar physics. So, sort of maybe allows you to planeswalk, I think. Maybe he inserted one in the Kami as well, something like that. But interesting that he began to study metaphysics, which also Simone of Strixhaven did, and got to learn to, I think, planeswalk with it. Rizona Azari Commander is a 3/3 samurai, so they like to attack alone. When they deal combat damage to a player, they have haste. If Rizona doesn't have indestructible, you give her an indestructible counter. If it has indestructible and doesn't have the indestructible counter, it gets it, that's all. Whenever combat damage is dealt to you, you have to remove an indestructible counter from Rizona. You don't get anything back for it, it's just a 3/3 that sometimes has indestructible. Rizona is a master artificer, artificer, born and raised in the mountain town of Sokensan-shi. She began her career by making weapons and armor for the imperial court. However, once the emperor disappeared, the court fell into chaos. So interesting that I only now learned this, we haven't read this in the story yet. Bureaucracy reigned supreme and the subsequent political jockeying left Soken Sanshi short on food during a deadly winter. Interesting. So there was so much chaos that the whole of the court went into hunger. Rizona would never trust the imperial court again. Maybe this is why there have been so many bandits, red-aligned samurai as well. And she wasn't the only one who fought this way. Many of her fellow artisans and warriors joined her and formed the Asari Uprisers. They are now planning a coup to replace the Imperials with a government that will have its citizens' interest at heart. Interesting, everyone is turning against the Imperial Court. The Uprisers, the Futurists, so red and blue. I think the Nezumi, like the Reckoners, are turning against them and rebelling. Every faction is against each other again. Kotori, Pilot Prodigy, a 3-mana Moonfolk pilot. Vehicles you control have crew 2. So they become easier to crew. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target artifact creature you control gains lifelink and vigilance until end of turn. So you have to crew them before combat if you want to give them lifelink and vigilance. From a young age, the precocious Kotori displayed an uncanny talent for piloting. She enrolled in the Futurists' Vehicular Exploration program to study under the researcher Katsumasa again. He theorized that channeling a Kami spirit into a mech would allow its pilot to synchronize better with the machine, so that's probably the first ability, resulting in greatly improved control and firepower. Kotori volunteers. She establishes an emotional bond with the Kami housed inside the mech and exceeds all of the Katsumasa's predictions. But an operation goes wrong. and the prototype mech refuses to deliver the final blow to a defeated Nature Kami. Kotori knows the futurists will destroy Shuri Kai if it is no longer fully under their control. Will she throw away her blossoming futurist career and Katsumasa's trust to save her giant mechanized partner? No. Katsumasa. Here we see Katsumasa. A 4-mana Moonfolk Artificer, a 3/3 flying creature. For 3 mana you can make an artifact alive until end of turn, and they gain flying. If it's not a vehicle, it becomes a 1/1. If it's a vehicle, it gets its own toughness and power, of course. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a +1 counter on up to 3 target non-creature artifacts. That's a lot of +1 counters. Does have to be at your upkeep, so you will have to crew your vehicles in advance again. But 3 +1 counters spread is a nice deal. Katsumasa is a renowned futurist researcher. Although his spriteful nature means he can be hard to work with, he is well respected among his peers and students who compete to study under him. He was the first researcher to create a useful connection between Akami and modern technology, the thing that the futurists are all about. His greatest accomplishment so far has been Shurokai, a mech with Akami bound to it. So mechs are harder to do than just small mechs, I guess. Chishiro, from the other commander deck, the Shattered Blade. When an aura or equipment enters the battlefield, you create a 2/2 red spirit creature token. And funny to say that Country Fried used this commander in his battle against me. At the beginning of your end step, put a +1 counter on each modified creature you control. So semi-proliferate, but only for modified creatures. Chishiro was an elite samurai in the Order of Jukai who could channel the magic of Kaima, Kami of Forest Fellowship, through his sword. This strength could even be extended to others based on how strong an emotional bond he forged with them. But Chishiro falls into a trap set by futurists. His friends were killed, Kaima was driven from him, and his sword was shattered. As we see in his art, his short sword is shattered. Broken and unwilling to risk the lives of others, Chishiro leaves the order and journeys alone, accepting coin to train warriors to defend themselves, sort of becoming friendly with them. When a small village is attacked by a group of Mukotai reckoners, Chishiro finds a glimmer of comradeship from his old life and chooses to battle alongside them. That's not what happened in the story though, leading them to a hard-won victory, sure. Kaima is his spirit friend. Here we see that they have been fractured, so they have been broken, and they were calm before, but now they are angry. At the beginning of your end step, goad each creature your opponents control that's enchanted by an aura you control. So give them an enchantment, or an aura, and then they become stronger, but they have to attack your opponents. Put a +1 counter on Kaima for each creature goaded this way. So Kaima also grows, which protects you from the creatures. Kaima is a highly protective kami who lives at the roots of Bo Seiju, the big tree. As the manifestation of the Forest Fellowship, he is staunchly suspicious of technology, so definitely wants to fight against the blue-white deck, and the Saiba futurists destroying the peace and balance of nature. Therefore, he volunteers to help the Order of Jukai to protect his forest home. He resembles a giant boar with bear's claws. Kaima channels his magic into the sword of an Orochi samurai named Chishiro, and the duo become a fearsome force. Kaima is even able to extend his so the same thing. After many defeats, the futurists try a different tactic. They trap Chishiro, break his sword, and kill his companions. Blah blah blah. People are afraid of the kami, until one day Kaima feels a familiar pang of comradeship. It's a village that has come together to defend itself, led by Chishiro. Seeing his friend's chivalry brings hope to Kaima, who returns to his friend to start a new beginning. So they become friends again. Tatsunari Toad Rider is someone from the Mukotai Reckoners, as we see in the text as well. These were the people that attacked Chishiro. For 3 mana, you get a human ninja that creates a 3/3 black and green frog creature token with whenever you cast an enchantment spell, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So what happens is you play an enchantment spell, you create a 3/3, then if you play another enchantment spell and the 3/3 is out, you don't get another 3/3, but you do get to drain your opponents for 1. Then for 2 mana, making this creature a 3 black, blue and white commander, you can have Tatsunari and a frog, doesn't have to be his frog, get flying, sort of. They can be blocked, except by creatures with flying or reach. So sort of flying, but they don't have flying, because they don't block the flying creatures. If the Mugatai Reckoners were considered outsiders, Tatsunari was the outsider to the outsiders. Smaller and weaker than most of his peers, he stuck to petty crimes like shoplifting and vandalism. Then one day he tried to steal a monk's coin purse, and he was caught by the kami the monk was channeling. At that moment he knew if he fucked up. And that if he would take the kami, he would be the strongest member in the Mugatai, and no one would look down on him ever again. But kami magic is hard to get. The spirits also, through his selfish motivation, sort of like the chakra system, the frustrated ninja took matters into his own hands and fished out a toad of an undercity canal. So that's where he get the fish from. He spent years caring for it, and then it was killed by a snake. He rides on the toad. He becomes a terrorizer of innocent people for some reason, but he especially hated Boseiju and the kami. That's why I wanted to have a second-hand part store and found a sword hilt belonging to the Order of Jukai. He bought it immediately and had it forged into a new weapon just for him. So stealing weapons. Ishin, 2 heavens as 1. Very controversial, apparently. If a creature would trigger an ability because of attacking, it triggers doubly. So 2 heavens as 1. We see the white and the red sword that he has. He is sort of in the middle maybe of being on the Emperor side and of the Rebel side. That's maybe why the black color is here. He is sort of in the middle and focuses on itself. Ishin began his career as the bodyguard for an imperial statesman in rural Kamigawa. He loved his work and found his employer to be an honorable man. But then the emperor disappeared, splintering the central government. So again, the same story. Being so far from Eganyo, Ishin thought they would be safe. But the chaos left his lord destitute, and Ishin was dismissed. He was wandering the countryside doing odd jobs or working alone when he was hired by a blacksmith in Soken Zanshi. There he learned of the Azari uprisers, maybe by the first rebel, a group dedicated to overthrowing the Imperials and putting the government into the hands of the people. Now he fights alongside them, hoping to bring freedom to the land, so he's still not totally on their side, as we can see. Interesting. Gosei, Penitent Warlord, a 3-mana Ogre Samurai that has, when they are enchanted, equipped, and have a counter, so you have to have all 3 of them. When they do common damage, you draw for every damage that they have done. So they start with 0 attack, a lot of toughness, but you want to enchant them anyways and give them at least 1 power for the +1 counter, so Gosei will become stronger over time. Although many ogre societies are not inherently violent, Gosei came from a village that worshipped Hidetsugu, the demon lord, sort of. The legendary ogre who swallowed an Oni and gained demon powers for himself. His countrymen saw pillaging as not really for himself, right? He gained the powers because he wanted to still serve his demon. But okay. His fellow ogres wanted to destruct things, and it made Gosei less happy. Just terror is pointless. His perspective changed when they attacked another ogre village, which they shouldn't have done. One which followed kami teachings and lived in balance with nature. Seeing that this was also possible, he returned to the village after the raid and offered to atone through hard labor. He farmed the land, repaired the broken buildings, and finally found forgiveness and belonging. The village welcomed him as one of their own, and he now only picks up arms again to defend those he loves. So he doesn't want to fight, but he still can. Gotose, the Silent Spider, is a 5 mana human ninja 4/4. When they enter, exile target card other than a basic land from an opponent's graveyard. Search the player's graveyard, hand, and library, so not for commander, for cards that have the same name. Then the player shuffles. For as long as you control Gotose, you may play one of the exiled cards. And you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color. So it does sort of work in commander, I guess. But what you want to do is ninjutsu this in a lot of times. Steal some cards from your opponent. Make sure that they cannot use it. Maybe steal a combo. They can't use the combo. You get to slowly get to the mana needed for the combo. And then you kill them with their own combo. That's what I want to do. Gotose grew up on the streets of the Undercity and joined the Mukotai Reckoners, which you have seen before with the Frog Rider, just to survive. She eked out a meager living by scavenging technology that others had thrown away. But the years of creeping through junkyards taught her to move silently. Are there guards there? No. And years of repair work taught her to fix and replicate the items she found. As her skills grew, so did her bravery. She's a brave ninja. She decided to target the top secret futurist workshop, but she was caught by the head researcher. Rather than throwing her in jail, he was so impressed by her ability to evade their security that he offered her more work. Steal and replicate intellectual property from rival labs. Gotose took this offer and began gathering a list of other clients who required similar services. Sort of stealing for everyone and stealing for no one. And she has never been caught again. Because she had a reason to be where she needed to steal everything. Ryu, Storm's Edge, is a 4 mana human samurai with a hat behind him. A 3/3 first strike. Whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, untap it. If it's the first combat phase of the turn, you have an additional combat phase. So you can attack alone once and then do whatever you want. Ryu is the captain of the Asari Uprisers again. He and his team went to free a Sokensen village from a group of unfair imperial tax collectors, so tax evasion, but their battle was interrupted by a deadly thunderstorm brewing above him. Ryu's friends were caught in an avalanche and quickly arrested by the Imperials. Ryu knelt on that cliff with his sword held out in a gesture of surrender, hoping to trade it to save his man's life. What a kind guy. When lightning struck its blade, somehow instead of killing him, the storm imbued him with the power of lightning and thunder. That's metal. He single-handedly freed his friends and became a hero to the rest of the Asari Uprisers. I think the Asari Uprisers will win, honestly. Well, maybe not. The Imperials have long kept dogs on the palace grounds, so maybe they win. Yoshimaru is a partner commander that becomes stronger whenever another legendary enters the battlefield. The current emperor is no exception on her first day of training. She took in Lightboss, the kitsune, as a dog. No. Lightboss gave her a puppy, which is weird because he is a fox, telling her to raise it by hand. Care for this dog now so you can care for the kingdom in the future. True. The young emperor took these words to heart, and Yoshimaru became the most intelligent, most loyal dog to the court that the court had ever seen. She loved having a friend whom she could share her imperial secrets with, like Kaido, and relieve the burden of responsibility. So, Yoshimaru was meant to be a burden, but became a release for responsibility. The day the emperor disappeared, so this is a really important moment for all of Kamigawa up to now. Yoshimaru was devastated as well. He searched high and low but could not find her, so he went to his favorite place that they shared. To this day, he guards her throne, awaiting her return. And we haven't seen the return, which is hurtful. Then we get 5 shrines. They all are creatures and shrines, which are a type of enchantment. This one, a 4 mana one with vigilance. At the beginning of your end step, you may pay 1. If you do, create a 1/1 spirit token for each shrine you control. So all shrines have this ability that when you have more shrines, you get more powerful ability. It seeks those who act with kindness and offers friendship. We see this in the story as well. A group of farmers in rural Kamigawa found themselves in grave danger when a nearby river threatened to overflow and flood their town. Do we see a river? No, not really. Seeking divine aid, they built a small shrine as an offering and attracted a kami of shared purpose. So you can attract kami by making them a house. The kami instructed them how to work together and dig trenches for irrigation. And when the waters came, the fields grew instead of drowning. Oh. Impressed by the people's performance, the kami chose to take permanent residence in the shrine, lending its magic and spirits to the town forever. So whenever you end your turn, because you have worked so hard, you get more friends, basically. I like that. The Shrine of Lost Wisdom, which looks cool. We have a sort of upside down human form and crane flying around it. This one is flying instead of vigilance, and at the beginning of your end step you may pay 1, and when you do, a player mills for how many shrines you have. It seeks those driven by curiosity. So here we see before, maybe the same sort of flavor as well. Yeah, it seeks those who act with kindness, it seeks those who are driven by curiosity, and offers friendship, and offers enlightenment. Long ago, an ambitious professor at Minamo Academy believed she could learn all the secrets of the universe if she could simply channel the correct kami. Maybe that's Azami Ozu. The little shrine she built intrigued a kami of lost wisdom. The curious kami shared its knowledge with the professor, including when and how she would die. Offended by the information, the professor asked her newfound revelation to be removed. The kami obliged, but it still resided in the shrine to this day, teasing travelers with impossible riddles. So they did not die this way. Weird. The Shrine of Hidden Cruelty, 4 mana, this one has Death Touch, and their shrine ability is pay 1 and destroy creatures with X or less toughness. It seeks those with hate in their hearts and offers vengeance. A young ogre was evicted from her cave by a violent warlord. The ogre had seen her people use little shrines to summon Oni, demons, so she figured she could summon a kami who would provide a solution to her homelessness. Her struggle inadvertently summoned the kami of hidden cruelty, so because she was angry. The kami whispered angry, vengeful thoughts into the ogre's ear until she took up arms and murdered the warlord. Shocked at what she had done, the ogre fled, but the kami remained in the shrine. Did the first one do this? Yeah, the kami chose to take permanent residence in the shrine. The kami obliged, but it still resides in the shrine. The kami remained in the shrine, offering vengeance. So the story is the same as well every time. Shrine of Ancient Wars, a first strike 1. Their abilities is pay 1 and deal X damage to target player or planeswalker. That's will be a game soon won. It seeks those consumed with rage and offers burning blades. That's useful. So 2 about rage. Hundreds of years ago, a group of Sogensen rebels fell under siege from an imperial regiment. Their numbers and supplies dwindled, and in desperation they built a small shrine. A kami of Ancient Wars came to aid and gave them burning blades. The rebels and the Imperials fought for days, and the kami cheered when blood spilled across the snow. When the last soldier finally fell, no one remained, but the kami stayed, hoping to get to see another fight. Well, that sucks for the kami that he is on the mountaintop here. The Shrine of a Boundless Vigor has Trample, and they get to grow a shrine with a +1 counter for every shrine you have. So can be put on themselves. It seeks those with untamed spirits, so wild people, and offers wild strength. A young monk was forced out of Jukai Forest by Tawashi's urban expansion. To preserve the memory of his homeland, he built a small shrine. And from his destroyed garden. Oh, that's why we see the weird shapes. The kami of Boundless Vigor came. Together, the kami and the monk reclaimed his section of the forest. Every tree cut down magically grew back the next day. Boundless Vigor. Before he passed, the monk moved the kami shrine to the reborn forest, where it lives to this day. granting strength to those wild nature people that cannot be tamed by the city. Then we have another green one, which is interesting because the other colors don't get 2, but this one has 5 colors in their ability. Of course they are green because in a 5 color deck you probably want to have green as your base. Few have seen a Kami die, but it's possible. A number crumbled into dust when the Jukai forest was decimated during the expansion of Tawashi. So again, because of Tawashi expanded or another city. However, the dust settled on an ancient shrine in the heart of the forest, so no humans came to be in this story, and began to coalesce into something new. The shrine took on a life and Kami powers of its own. So, the Shrine of Shrines. This new spirit continues to wander throughout Kamigawa, growing stronger as it is joined by the remains of other deceased Kami. Oh. So that's why it's slurping up shrines, as we see in the art as well. The Shrine of Shrines has a Wooburg ability where you tap it as well, return target shrine probably from your graveyard to the battlefield, and when a shrine enters, you create another shrine. Shrine. Norika Yamazaki the poet is one of the 5 legendary history people. A 3-mana samurai with vigilance, that is a 3/2. Whenever a samurai warrior you control attacks alone, you may cast target enchantment card from your graveyard this turn, so recursion, making white a little stronger every day. Thoughtful and introspectful Tiff. Norika trained to be a scholar and a poet, but the brilliance for tactics propelled her rise through the ranks of the Imperials to become one of their brightest young generals. Most recently, she's been given the task of stamping out the Azari uprisers, the increasingly popular rebel movement whose aim is to overthrow Imperial rule. It's a difficult task and complicated even more by the fact that she'll be facing off against her cousin and former childhood best friend, Heiko Yamazaki. Who is Heiko Yamazaki? Did we see her? No. Will be interesting to see them. Heiko Yamazaki. Here they are. Oh, that's cute. I didn't see this before, but here you see Heiko Yamazaki as well. And here you see Norika in their on the other side. Heiko Yamazaki the General is a trample samurai that says whenever a samurai warrior attacks alone, you may cast target artifact from your graveyard this turn. So definitely a yin-yang story of the white order, Eiganyo, and the red rebelistic, and then the enchantments and the artifacts. The only daughter of a long line of imperial advisors, Heiko Yamazaki grew disillusioned after she experienced a tragic accident with her cousin. It opened her eyes to how imperial strictures on technological innovation disproportionately affected certain segments of the populace, what words, and she quickly found her way to the Azari uprisers, where she made a name for herself as one of the movement's most brilliant guerrilla fighters. So again, using 2 stories as one. And a trusted advisor to Rizona, leader of the uprisers, who we have seen before. Stationed in Soken Sanchi, she has managed to repel every imperial attempt so far to stabilize their hold in the mountainous city. But who knows what will happen when she's forced to confront her cousin and former childhood. That's what the previous one said. Very lazy writing. Ao, the Dawn Sky. A 5-mana dragon spirit that is supposed to take over the lead as the white dragon spirit. All of them are flying, so let's get that out of the way, and then they have a keyword, and then when they die, you choose one. I will not say that again. This one dies, then look at the top 7 cards of your library, put any number of non-land permanent cards with total mana 4 or less, so 4 mana worth of permanent cards onto the battlefield. Or you put 2+1 counters on each permanent you control. That's a creature or a vehicle. That's a lot of counters, so a strong ability. Kari didn't even say the story. Ao is the reincarnation of Yosei, so we see that they have died and that this one has returned. We didn't see the dying because there's almost no story. the divine dragon that was guardian of Kamigawa's plains and the city of Egonyo, haunted by the memories of his violent death when he was torn in half in the battle against Okagachi. Ao refused to assume the role of Egonyo's protector again after the city was rebuilt, and tries to distance himself from mortal affairs as much as possible. This has nothing to do with the breaking down of Egonyo though, because we know that the Emperor returned and saw Yosei. So Ao is new and comes after the Emperor returned. So this is wrong even. On occasion though, he will break his own vows, unable to stand by and do nothing when an extreme injustice is being committed. So maybe Egonyo needs to heal a little bit for Ao to do his job. Really weird. Weirdly written. Wrong. Or it means that the Emperor leaves again. And when they leave, Ao comes back to life. But wait, they were torn in half? No. No. Kari, they have Ward 3. When they die, you choose to return any number of target non-land permanents with total mana value 6 or less to their owner's hands, so bouncing stuff, or mill 6 cards and then return up to 2 instants and or sorcery cards from your graveyard to your hand. Nice. The reincarnation of Keiga, the divine dragon of islands. Kairi continued to protect Minamo until, oh, they wanted to use the same story gimmick again. Continued to protect Minamo until Minamo's decline late in the Shattered States era. When Otawara began to rise as the preeminent center of learning and innovation, they sought out Kairi for the dragon's protection, but Kairi was suspicious of the Moonfolk's intentions and refused. Nowadays he spends most of his time exploring the oceans and skies of Kamigawa, discovering mysteries that he keeps to himself, not sharing any knowledge anymore. Junji, the Midnight Sky, a 5 mana 1 with Menace. You get to choose. Each opponent discards 2 cards and loses 2 life, or put a non-dragon creature card from a graveyard into the battlefield under your control and you lose 2 life. You lose 2 life. Unlike many of the other divine dragons, Kokusho didn't die during the Kami War. Yosei didn't die during the Kami War apparently either, though. What? Maybe I've written everything wrong in my life. But he didn't die during the Kami War, but was killed decades afterwards, guarding the denizens of Takanuma against an Oni attack. When he was reincarnated as so lame, Junji chose to distance himself completely from the swamp, abandoning Takanuma and leaving its inhabitants to fend for themselves. He took up residence in the canals snaking through the Tawashi Undercity, his presence a constant silent warning that keeps Reckoner gangs from letting their turf wars get too out of hand. So still protector, though. So the small story even isn't coherent with itself. The Blazing Sky has Trample. When they die, you get to exile the top 2 cards and play them until your next turn, the end of your next turn, or create 3 treasure tokens. Out of all of the divine dragons, Atushi has most fully embraced her reincarnation. Despite the fact that she never died, she chose to be reborn along with the other dragons and take on a new form. Most of the time she's genial and happy-go-lucky, though she's been known to fly into a destructive rage. Whenever someone manages to trigger her Flashfire temper, she continues to act as a guardian. So this is so interesting that we see the dragons taking new roles and they have reincarnated, but we never get to see anything about them in a story. She's a frequent visitor at Soken Zanshi, where her presence is always welcomed enthusiastically. And she guards the Sokensen Mountains. Kura, the Boundless Sky, has Death Touch, and when they die, you get to search a library for 3 lands and put them into your hand, or create a spirit that's as big as the amount of lands that you have. The reincarnation of Jugen, former protector of the Jukai Forest, resurrected in her original form by the Orochi, but realized that with most of the other dragons dead, the balance of nature was in precarious position. She collected the essences of all the dragons and then placed them inside an egg, which eventually hatched the reincarnations of all 5 dragons. As Korra, she continues to act as guardian of Jukai Forest, protecting it fiercely against incursions by all, so also doing her job. So she has most fully embraced her reincarnation? No. Korra has also embraced her reincarnation just as much. How? You get the job to make 5 dragons, and you get to do 3 things wrong. But okay, Hidetsugu, who ate a demon. 4 mana for black mana to sacrifice a creature's cry 2. 3 mana to tap it as well, exile the top card of your library, you may play it this turn. Right now, we want stuff, but we want it now. Then Hidetsugu also deals damage equal to the exiled card's mana value, so can do like 10 damage. In the former life, Hidetsugu was simply an ogre who worshipped the all-consuming Oni of Chaos. When his demonic master failed, he did what anyone would do and went to the spirit realm to exact revenge by devouring the Oni, merging with the remains and taking his place as the most formidable demonic entity in Kamigawa. That's what everyone would do. His cruelties and the destruction he wreaked throughout the land caused Kyodai to personally intervene and imprison him in the spirit realm. For now at least, but Hidetsugu bides his time, and one day he'll break free to once more unleash chaos upon the land. I really feel like I have been wrong with Ao. But okay, we will see it. I think the legendary creature is later, but maybe it was Kyodai and not like Yosai. Sorry. Goro, disciple of Ryosai. As a young Aki, Goro, so the goblin type, Goro grew up hearing all the ancient tales of Ryosai, the former incarnation of Atsushi. The stories filled him with such awe for the great dragon that he decided to dedicate his life to Ryosai. Never mind that Ryosai had been reincarnated hundreds of years ago. He tirelessly treks through the mountains following Atsushi and loudly making offerings to her in the name of Ryosai. Annoying. Think about being the boss of a new company and then the people keep praising the previous leader. Atsushi would have killed him long ago out of sheer annoyance, but the offerings Goro makes are just valuable enough that the dragon permits him to live for the time being. A 2 mana 2/2 Goblin Samurai. For red mana, creatures you control have haste. Wow, that's really strong. And for 5 mana, you create a 5/5 with flying. Only if you have a modified creature. Kodama of the West tree is, I think, the last 3, and we have had East, North, and South as well. Legendary Creature Spirit, a 3/3. A 3/3 for 3 that has reach. Modified creatures you control have trample. And whenever a modified creature you control deals combat damage to a player, which they will more easily do, you may search the library for a basic land card. This is overpowered. Gloomy, dangerous, and feral, the Kodama of the West tree values the hunt above all else and lives by the creed survival of the fittest. It has a passionate hatred of Tawashi and all who live within it, and frequently prowls the edge of the forest where it abuts the city, stalking and attacking any mortals who try to enter without the Kami's blessings. Its peaceful appearance is merely a ruse. Those who are foolish enough to be lured in by the calming glow of its lights, anglerfish, often find themselves the recipients of a swift and merciless death. Shigeki Jukai Visionary is a 2 mana legendary enchantment creature snake druid. That's a 1/3, and for 2 mana you may return it to its owner's hand, reveal the top cards, 4 cards of your library, and you may put a land from among them onto the battlefield and put the rest into your graveyard. So milling a lot and getting some lands. 1 land. For 4 mana, and it takes you 2 turns. You may also channel Shigeki and return X target non-legendary cards from your graveyard to your hand. Okay, green didn't need the power anyways. The Order of Jugai was founded when the Orochi Shigeki, communing with a powerful nature kami, experienced a prophetic vision of the spirit realm shattering. Convinced that the stress of all these new technological developments was ripping apart the spirit realm, he decided to take action before the fabric of reality was irreparably damaged. The Order quickly grew as others joined and shared similar visions they'd had. Aided by a mysterious kami that refers to itself simply as Mori, Shigeki advocates swift, destructive action against centers of technological innovation. Much like Kodama of the Westry. Griesfang, the leader of Okiba Reckoners, the Nezumi-only biker gang that rides the streets of Tawashi, the undercity of it. Griesfang refuses to let others look down on her for being Nezumi. Under her command, the Okiba Reckoners have grown in number and influence and are rapidly making a name for themselves as the top gang in Tawashi's undercity. Any Nezumi who joins is her family, and she doesn't hesitate to retaliate against any perceived slight against her kin. So the black for the banditry and the white for being a family. Her message is clear: mess with one of us, you mess with us all. So she accepts other people into her gang as well, but mostly the Nezumi. She's a red pilot, that's a 4/3. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may return a vehicle from the graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, but you get to return it to your hand afterwards. So you can use it once and then have to replay it again. Hinata Dawn Crowned is a Jeskai Kirin spirit, the playful ones. Kirin by nature have always been curious about the affairs of mortals, but none are quite as curious or as meddlesome as Hinata, who has always been called the impertinent and one who bothers. Hinata, one who bothers. As far as they're concerned, though, they're simply granting mortals the gifts that they deserve. Karma. Other Kirin, however, find Hinata's antics amusing and will shamelessly encourage them. They find it fun, okay. A 4-mana 4/4 Flying Trample. Impressive. Spells you cast cost 1 less for each target, and spells your opponents cast cost 1 more to cast for each target. So a Lightning Strike would cost 1, but a funny enough, what was it? Well, you have those cards that cost red and then X, and then you can target a lot of creatures. They cost 0 extra for every creature that you target. So this Hinata can make a lot of one-sided board wipes, which I think makes her really overpowered. Interesting. Naomi, Pillar of Order, doesn't have another art. Whenever they enter the battlefield or attack, if you control an artifact and an enchantment, so if you have both, create a 2/2 Samurai white one with Vigilance, the one that gets out of the egg. Progress comes only when we rise above our petty quarrels. Don't fight between the enchantments old people and artifact new people. Use them both. The daughter of an imperial advisor, Naomi grew up with a taste for power, driven by the desire to do the best for Kamigawa. A master politician, she carefully cultivates relationships both inside and outside of the Imperials, always on the lookout for opportunities to improve Imperial policy, and by extension, so she is all about policy, the Azorius, the Orso thing, but she wants to improve on it, which is new. After all, just because you're working for the greater good doesn't mean you have to neglect your own personal gains. True. Most recently, she's been reaching out to some of the most powerful Reckoner bosses in Tawashi, though to what end, she keeps carefully to herself. Nice, I like her. Satoru Umezawa is the new Umezawa, sort of the grandchild probably, and is the ruthless leader of the Hyozun Reckoners, the largest and most well-known Reckoner gang on Kamigawa, so almost overtaken by a rat. Under his rule, the Hyozun Reckoners have grown bolder and more daring in their activities. They always were. Sometimes they had an ogre that would destroy a whole university. But okay. Sometimes even going as far as attack Imperial patrols in their own territory. Satoru is infamous for having once exterminated the family of another rival Reckoner who was thinking about challenging him. Just to send a message. He claims to be a descendant of the fabled Toshiro Umezawa, a claim that no one has ever been able to verify. That's weak, but that no one dares question either. I think that's then that he is the descendant, yeah. We know him a little bit, but he gives all your creature cards in your hand ninjutsu for 4, and whenever you activate such a ninjutsu ability, you may look at the top 3, put one of them into your hand, and the other ones onto the bottom in any order that you choose. You can only do this once per turn, so it's not like you go infinite immediately, but that's a lot of value. Myojin of Blooming Dawn, a 7-mana legendary creature spirit that is a new Myojin. So as I was talking about before, there were 5, I think, maybe more. Sorry, but Myojin are the essences of which Kami spring forth from. And these are the most powerful Kami in that sense. But they are not Kami, they are a different thing. And they also cannot truly come to life. So what you see here is a Kami of the Myojin. So interesting, but it is still the essence and the most complete version of the essence of the Myojin of Blooming Dawn. But okay, 8 mana, you get a 4/6, and they enter with an indestructible counter on them. So no divine counters anymore. Remove an indestructible counter from Myojin of Blooming Dawn. Create a 1/1 spirit creature token for each permanent you control. So sort of doubling your permanents. That's a strong thing. And if you can give this indestructible counters, which is possible with the Ikoria things that seem to work together really well, Kamigawa and Ikoria, you can get this multiple times, again doubling your creatures. If you had 5 creatures, you will have 10 and then 20. The Myojin of Blooming Dawn, and of course it also works with all of your lands because they are permanents as well. But this Myojin embodies the force of hope and is largely considered a benevolent Kami. This elusive Kami has never been seen up close, only ever glimpsed as a figure in the distance, which is really scary to see this thing in the distance. Though its wanderings across the land can be tracked by the trail of blooming flowers it leaves in its wake. Cute. Some of the oldest, most traditional poetic forms of Kamigawa are based on the chiming rhythms of its bells. That sounds nice, like you see, you are in a flower field and you hear these peaceful bells all around, and then in the distance you see like a big doll-like spirit moving like this. Myojin of Cryptic Dreams. It gets worse. Again, 8 mana, the blue one. Indestructible counter again, so the divine counter. Removing it so indestructible really becomes the best counter to have, I think. Removing it from Myojin of Cryptic Dreams lets you copy target permanent you control 3 times. I had to change spots for a little bit, so that's why I'm here right now, a day later. But where we were was that we could remove an indestructible counter, and then that would mean that we would get to copy a target permanent spell we control 3 times. So that's a lot. This is the second Myojin that we were talking about, the Myojin of Cryptic Dreams, who embodies the force of inspiration. It has never shown itself fully, again, so that's one of the returning parts of the story, into the mortal realm. Instead, it visits mortals in the dreams, where it shows itself only as a reflection in a mirrored surface and whispers to them. Even in dreams, it is so cryptic. Planting new ideas in their minds. Each reflection of the Mugen is a unique mirror aspect of it, mirror as in copy tokens. It has an infinite number of such mirror aspects, each representing a new idea that no one on the plane has ever thought of before. Even its description is fake. Mugen of Grim Betrayal has the same thing, same mana cost, this time black. We see a Mugen of Grim Betrayal, who is playing around with death, it seems. But when you remove an indestructible counter from this Mugen, you may put onto the battlefield, under your control, all creature cards in all graveyards that were put there from anywhere this turn. So this also works with, for example, milling a lot of cards. This one embodies the force of ambition. In ancient times, different kind of story, a warlord prayed to the Kami to become the next emperor of Kamigawa. The Mugen of Grim Betrayal answered his prayer, granting him unmatched battle prowess, and conveniently failed to mention that it had answered similar prayers from others and granted them the same boon. So not really betrayal, but maybe the Mugen itself is betraying these people now. The ensuing clash ended up being the first in an era of the dynastic infighting that history would later dub the Shattered States era. So this Mugen actually started a whole saga. So that's really interesting to me too. I also just now noticed that I think, so the first ones I want to note on this later because I thought this would be the same for everyone, but you get Koroglu. I think I can't really read it in this weird shape, sorry. Is the one that made the first two, and these two are from Jason A. Engel. And the next one will be from a different artist again. But here we see of Roaring Blades. The red shrine from before also was playing around with fairy blades. This one lets you deal 7 damage to each of up to 3 targets. So in a standard game, you just have to put 3 indestructible counters on this creature, and then it can kill your opponent. This one embodies the force of unrest. Its blades, made of molten lava motes, will shard and plant themselves inside those who survive its strike. Oh, so survive its strike and you become stronger. I think the mote residing within that person, oh no, continues to burn, forever filling them with a restlessness that consumes them day and night, so not really stronger per se. And affect change on a level unmatched by anyone else, as they are to be mired in chaos and constant dissatisfaction, so don't try to survive this one. Also, what does that have to do with 7 damage? This one of Towering Might, the green one, is of course, I think, the biggest dude ever from these. All are the same cost, but 4/6, 3/3, 5/2, 7/4, and 8/8. This almost doesn't need anything, just an indestructible 8/8 is already pretty good. Of course it's green, but then it also lets you distribute 8+1 counters among any number of target creatures you control. Insane, you can do this at instant speed, you know. So if this were to be exiled or something, you can still distribute his +1 counters around. They also gain trample until end of turn. So yeah, green. This one embodies the force of evolution. For the most part, it lurks in the depths of Jukai Forest, content to let nature run its course without interference. Lucky for us. Its appearances in the rest of the plane are rare and typically are a sign of some massive shift occurring in the spirit realm. The last time anyone saw it was right before the formation of the Order of Jukai, another saga. Or in other words, right as the Order's founder Shigeki was experiencing the visions of the spirit realm's deterioration. Whispered rumors claim that this Myojin is soon to make an appearance again, but when, where and why, no one can say. Then we come to Kyodai. I have looked this up a little bit before right now, but this is of course a different dragon than the other one that was being noted. This one also notably a lot weaker. It's just flash flying, gives something indestructible, and then for all 5 colors, which does make this a 5 color commander, it gets +5/+5, so it's not really good as a commander per se, I think. 1200 years ago, the mortal and spirit realms of Kamigawa were separated by a barrier overseen by the great kami, Okagachi. Until the then ruler stole a piece of the serpentine spirit and locked it away in a stone disc, basically. An all-out war, the Kami War, began between the mortals and the kami, which was finally stopped by the ruler's daughter, Michiko Konda. Okagachi perished, the barrier between realms faded, and the stolen item came to life as Kyodai, the new kami of a unified Kamigawa, so that's where Kyodai comes from. Kyodai channeled her magic into Michiko, so Michiko has an aspect of Okagachi inside of herself, and the pair ushered in an age of harmony. After Michiko's reign ended, Kyodai continued to bond with and provided as I can't get out of my words anyways, it's interesting to say that the Kami and the Myojin were sort of opposed to the barrier being opened before, but right now they are okay with it because right now Okagachi is not the keeper of the rift anymore. Right now it should be Michiko, but of course Michiko is gone now, and Kyodai is sort of dying, so there is something that needs to be done about this. And we haven't seen that because no story. Kyodai channeled the magic into Michiko, and the pair ushered in an age of harmony. After Michiko's reign ended, Kyodai continued to bond with and provide sage advice to each successive emperor of Kamigawa, until now, when the current emperor's planeswalker spark ignited. Again, people that have a lot of responsibility in Magic often get to jump planes, chase, sending the Emperor wandering the multiverse and leaving Kyodai lost in a constant state of confusion, of which we haven't seen them return yet. Jin Cataxias, to make things worse, is a visitor from another plane, New Phyrexia, which is inhabited by a race of biochemical creatures who want to absorb the rest of the multiverse to create more of themselves. He is the praetor in charge of the Progress Engine, a Phyrexian faction that believes perfection can be achieved through lethal and unethical experimentation. If it's ethical, you really aren't making any grounds. As creatures without souls, Phyrexians cannot innately develop planeswalker abilities. So how do they do it? We don't know. In her bid to take over the multiverse, another praetor named Alice Norn challenged Jin Cataxias to find a way to turn planeswalkers into Phyrexians. With the aid of Tezzeret, a self-serving planeswalker, Jin Cataxias arrives on Kamigawa. Okay, so like that. Apparently he has the power to do this. Believing the plane's dual realm nature will help further his studies. His experiment succeeds, and he then turns the Moonfolk planeswalker Tamio into the first Phyrexian planewalker. Weekend ride, apparently. Okay, first what they do is when you cast an artifact, instant or sorcery spell, you may copy it and choose new targets once a turn. Or whenever your opponent does that, you may counter the first one. So sort of the same effect for both of you. So the Phyrexians have succeeded in becoming, I think, immortal and in becoming planeswalkers. So we're kinda doomed already. We go on to something else. Nashi Moon Sage's Scion. They were born in a Nezumi swamp village in rural Kamigawa, but his home was burned down and his parents slain by a malicious planeswalker named the self-serving Tezzeret, who believed the Nezumi had a valuable artifact. Luckily, he was quickly adopted by the Moonfolk planeswalker Tamio. Nashi's fur has since grown back, but has turned white where his burns used to be. Cool. Giving him a unique pattern among the Nezumi. Although his new family is loving and supportive and a Phyrexian, he still deals with feelings of being small and an outsider. However, he has learned how to cope with the grief and even make new friends through his interest in technology. He also finds great comfort in the stories his previous mother has collected around the multiverse and would like nothing more than to see it for himself one day. RIP. This is a ninja for 3 mana. That is a 3/2, but for 4 mana you can ninjutsu it in, and then when they deal combat damage to a player, they were unblocked, exile the top card of that player's library, and then you may play those cards, because this is someone that steals technology. Again, if you would cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its mana value rather than paying its mana cost, which is arguably most of the time better. Kaido Shizuki is a master ninja who augments and probably does some he doesn't do arguments, but he augments his skills as an infiltrator with innate telekinetic powers. He pursues a personal agenda of technological progress on his homeworld of Kamigawa, determined to make the plane a better place for himself and his family. Kaido is a risk-taker at heart, and despite his childhood friendship with Kamigawa's emperor, he has no qualms about breaking rules or flouting authority to accomplish his goals. Sure, then when you have played, if Kaido has entered the battlefield this turn, he faces out at the beginning of your next end step. This means that at the beginning of every one of your end steps, I think, he phases out. Maybe. Do they enter when they phase out? That would be weird, because then you will never get to his -7, I think. You get an emblem with, whenever a creature you control deals damage to a player, search your library for a blue or black creature card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. You wouldn't be able to do that then, right? No, I really don't know. Oh, I don't know. But +1 draw a card and discard unless you attack this turn, so you probably already want to attack, and for -2 you get an unblockable ninja 1/1 to help him with his abilities, of course, and with ninjutsu, because then you can ninjutsu on your unblockable ninjas. Interesting as well that we see Nashi after a literal Phyrexian Praetor and before our Planeswalkers. The Wandering Emperor is a flash Planeswalker, which is interesting. And when they have entered the battlefield this turn, you may instantly either put a +1 counter on a creature and give them first strike for the +1. For the -1, create a 2/2 with which you can block a lot of times, because it also has vigilance. Or you can exile that creature, which is way more effective at instant speed. You also gain 2 life. The Wanderer is a cipher, a traveling swordswoman of incredible skill whose identity and motives are shrouded in mystery. Not anymore. Hiding her features behind a wide-brimmed hat, which she also doesn't wear anymore. She appears without warning to aid in battle or defend the innocent, only to disappear just as suddenly without explanation. Only a select few individuals know the truth. The Wanderer is the last Emperor of Kamigawa. Well, no one knew that before she became the Emperor of Kamigawa again, but seeking a way to finally return home. This is not smart of me. We can't read the abilities right now, but Tamio is a moonfolk, and she has this about her. The story of the multiverse spans countless planes and stretches back thousands of generations, and Tamio won't rest until she's documented it all. An intrepid researcher in search of deep truths and hidden secrets, she tries to avoid interfering in the history she studies. Despite her efforts to remain impartial, she has an uncanny knack for putting herself at the center of events that will define the multiverse for generations to come. And here we see that she has been completed as a Phyrexian, and that's why we can't read her abilities right here. Also because I'm a little bit stupid. And right now she doesn't care about all stories, she only cares about the stories of Phyrexia. Tezzeret, another betrayer of flesh, enables you to have the first artifact ability from an artifact you control cost 2 less to activate. You can, he always does this, he only costs 4 mana. You can draw 2 cards for his +1 and then discard 2 unless you discard an artifact card, which is a 2 mana card on its own. The first one is probably also 2 mana, so that checks out, but then he's also Planeswalker that everyone wants to attack. But his -2 is target artifact becomes an artifact creature if it isn't a vehicle. It has base power and toughness 4/4. Also really good as it crews your vehicles, but also makes your normal artifacts useful. Lair. His -6 is an emblem with whenever an artifact you control becomes tapped, draw a card, which will win you the game really fast. A devious inventor capable of manipulating metal and other things. Tezzeret can create complex devices or deadly mechanical servants with remarkable speed. Sorcery speed. Though he has spent years in service to more powerful masters, Tezzeret has slowly but surely accumulated power and influence, biding his time for an opportunity to emerge from the shadows as a force to be reckoned with. Okay, so will he be better than Nicobolas and the Phyrexians? We don't know. I will go on to some other questions because we have seen, as I take a sip of cola, because we have seen that there were a lot of Q&A things from wizards themselves, and I have translated their answers to make them more accessible. The first question was, why were Kappa dead before and alive now? Kappa are sort of turtle-like creatures. Well, the answer is people thought so 1200 years ago. So you're old. Actually, we said that they died, but that was a joke and we wanted ninja turtles. It's really what they said. Do you only return to worlds because it will make you money? Only if it's a lot of money. That's also really what they said. It's not a quote. It's more like my interpretation. But it is like literally what they meant. Why did Azorius get vehicles? We wanted something new and it played better than plain old Boros. So give blue everything. And we are really obsessed with keeping our colors straight. So we won't give white powerful things like Cardwall, but we will give blue things like vehicles anyways, to smear it out just for fun. Why did Kamigawa only get one set? Kamigawa is less popular than Innistrad. And that's it. Artifacts versus enchantments seems logical. Will we get more of it? Well, yes, now that we make more profit, we can make more art versions like artifact creatures and enchantment creatures at once. So more money means more fun things, basically. And that were those were the questions. And I saved you a lot of time with just these, so no problem at all. I did this with a lot of fun to read through thousands of words to just get the real answers for you. With that, I wish you a nice day. Have fun with your Kamigawa cards for how long it lasts. You have like 2 weeks left to enjoy them. And well, stay healthy, stay happy, and don't become sour. Bye.